Airline companies are asking for a second round of bailouts, and this time they're almost threatening that if they don't get what they want, they're gonna fire 75,000 Americans in October, just 1 month before our election. What's up, everybody? I am Jasprit Singh from theminorityMindset.com and welcome to the Minority Mindset. When the CARES Act was passed in March 2020, it gave airlines a $25 billion bailout as long as airline companies promised that they wouldn't lay anybody off until after September 30th, 2020. Well, September 30th is around the corner and 75,000 Americans are about to lose their jobs. Airline companies are saying that come October 1st, the date that the restriction ends, 75,000 Americans are gonna lose their jobs unless they get more money from the government. So airlines are asking for another $25 billion bailout, and this time they're holding their employees hostage. And to make things just a little bit more interesting, we have a presidential election coming in November, just 1 month after 75,000 Americans could potentially lose their jobs in the airline industry. That's why in this video, I'm gonna be going over what's going on in the airline industry, what's coming, and what you can do to capitalize on it. But before we get into that, hit that thumbs up button below and subscribe to the Minority Mindset YouTube channel. That way you don't miss our new financial news and education videos every single week. And hit that little notification bell too, because if you don't, well, then YouTube won't let you know when our new videos are released. The airline industry before this pandemic employed about 620,000 full-time workers in America. As soon as this pandemic hit, air travel was banned across the globe, businesses stopped all of their corporate travel, and people stopped going on vacation. So airline companies went from soaring in the clouds to grounded on the runway. That's when the United States government passed the CARES Act, which was the first stimulus plan in 2020, and this stimulus plan gave airlines a $25 billion bailout to stay in business. The whole idea behind this bailout was airlines were hurt by a pandemic that they didn't cause, and the government doesn't want to see the whole airline industry go bust. Now, I agree, airlines didn't cause this pandemic, but they definitely could have done more to be prepared for it. In the years leading up to this pandemic, airlines were making so much money that they didn't know what to do with it, so they decided not to save some money. They decided to use all of their extra cash to buy up their own stock, which was good for their owners. And so now they had no cash savings, and then the pandemic came, and that's why they were so desperate for a bailout. So the government gave them $25 billion as long as the airlines agreed that they wouldn't do 3 things. They can't do any major layoffs or pay cuts until after September 30th, 2020. They can't buy back their own stock or pay out any dividends until at least September 2021. And airline executives get limited pay until March 2022. So airlines got their money and everybody thought that things were good, and that's when United Airlines came out and they said that they were gonna lay off 36,000 employees on October 1st. The rules say that the airline companies cannot lay anybody off until October 1st, but it doesn't say anything about telling people that they're gonna be laid off. You sneaky. United Airlines essentially told their employees to start looking for a new job without actually telling them to look for a new job, because this was their way of cutting payroll costs. But it's not just United Airlines that's struggling, it's the whole industry. Now with talks of a second stimulus check, airlines are essentially begging for a second bailout, because if they don't get this bailout, they're saying that 75,000 Americans are gonna lose their jobs come October, just 1 month before our presidential election. Wait, is that a threat? The airlines are hurting, there's no doubt about that. I mean, airlines lost something like $10 billion in the second quarter of 2020 alone. But is it the government's job to be the hero and save every airline company at your expense through your tax dollars, even though airline companies didn't do their part of creating that savings cushion? Or do we let the strong companies survive and let the weak fail? And if the government does decide to be the hero and save the airline industry, then where does the free money stop? Like, okay, the airline companies are hurting, that's pretty obvious. But what about the airline manufacturers? In the month of June 2020, Boeing, who is one of the largest airline manufacturers in the world, sold 1 plane. That's their 6th straight month of no order growth. Well, you might think, hey, at least they sold something. Well, that's just part of the story. Boeing had a net negative 182 plane orders in June 2020 because people and companies are canceling their plane orders left and right. And out of those plane cancellations, 179 of them are Boeing 737 Maxes, which if you remember, those were the planes that crashed and were grounded. So does the government bail out Boeing too? I mean, they're struggling and Boeing asked for government money, but Boeing got lucky because the Federal Reserve Bank went to Boeing and said, "Psst, how about we, the Federal Reserve Bank, loan you some money, just sell us some bonds." So Boeing got to borrow some very cheap money from the Federal Reserve Bank, but this might not be the end of the story. So you're going to be hearing a lot more about bailouts in the coming weeks and months, but before I get into what you can do about this, if you are interested in staying up to date on what's happening in the finance and business news like this, that's why we created the free Minority Mindset newsletter, where our team first breaks down the top finance and business news, and then we show you how this news affects your wallet. That way you can be smart with your money. This newsletter is completely free, and you can subscribe to our free finance and business newsletter by clicking the link up here or by clicking the link in the description below. By the way, our financial news emails are separate from our financial education emails. Airline travel will eventually go back to normal. I don't know when that will be, and some CEOs are saying that it's going to happen after we get a vaccine and people feel comfortable to fly again, but it will eventually happen. This creates opportunity for you as an investor because that means you can come in and invest in distressed companies at a discount, assuming you're investing for the long term. But this comes with its fair share of risk. Investing has risks, okay? You are never guaranteed to make money when you invest. You might even lose money, so always do your own due diligence and never blindly listen to a random guy on YouTube. To put it in perspective, Warren Buffett used to own shares in United Airlines, American Airlines, Delta Airlines, and Southwest Airlines, and he sold all of his shares in all of his airline stocks because he thinks the airlines are gonna get worse before they get better. Obviously, if you have the patience and you want to invest in airlines for the long term, you could invest in individual airline companies. However, that comes with the most risk because if you invest in one airline company, like let's say you invest in American Airlines, for example, and American Airlines goes bankrupt, then your whole investment just went bust. Another way that you can invest into airlines is by investing in an airline ETF like JETS, JETS, because this gives you exposure to the entire airline industry. And no, I'm not telling you what to buy, just giving you an example. When you invest in an ETF, you're not buying shares of one company. You are investing in a fund which invests in a bunch of different companies. JETS is an airline ETF, which means when you invest in JETS, you're investing in a fund which is investing in dozens of different airline companies. So when you invest in JETS, you're getting exposure to a lot of different airline companies. So when airline companies do well, the ETF goes up. And when airline companies don't do so good, the ETF comes down. The advantage of investing in an ETF, not just for airlines, but in general, is you tend to have less risk because you're not investing in one company, you're investing in a fund which gives you exposure to a bunch of different companies. The downfall of investing in an ETF is that your returns are kind of normalized because some of the stocks in your ETF might do really well, while others might not, so your returns kind of get averaged out. I'm not going to go too deep into investing and how stocks and ETFs work in this video, but if you do want to learn more, our team wrote an awesome article on our website that breaks down what the stock market is, how stock market investing works, how you can invest in stocks and ETFs, and how to find a good brokerage for you. If you want to read this article on our website, you can do that on our blog by clicking the link up here, and I'll also link it for you in the description below. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, share it with one friend. That way we can help spread the word. If you want to learn more about how you can find a good company to invest in on the stock market, I already made a video on this, and you can watch this video on YouTube by clicking this button right over here. Thank you for watching, and as always, keep hustling.